In Alaska this morning, investigators are at the crash site of a military cargo jet. It happened last night in Elmendorf Air Force Base near Anchorage. The C-17 jet was practicing for an upcoming air show when it went down, exploding on impact. The Air Force says it's likely all 4 people on board were killed.
On July 28, 2010, the roar of a U.S. Air Force C-17 Globemaster III filled the skies above Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska. What began as a routine training flight in preparation for the upcoming Arctic Thunder Air Show ended in tragedy.
There's a couple things, again, that makes the C-17 unique, because the C-17 has a stick. Usually heavy aircraft have a yoke.
In under a minute, the massive cargo plane, tail number 00-0173, known as the Spirit of the Aleutians, lost control and crashed in a fiery explosion.
In Alaska this morning, investigators are at the crash site of a military cargo jet. It happened last night in Elmendorf Air Force Base near Anchorage.
All 4 crew members aboard perished.
The Air Force says it's likely all 4 people on board were killed.
This video tells the full story of the crash, from the flight's purpose and the aircraft's capabilities to the sequence of events that led to the fatal stall. We'll also look at the official investigation, contributing factors, and the broader implications for air safety protocols in the U.S. military. The C-17 Globemaster III is one of the most iconic and vital aircraft in the U.S. Air Force's mobility fleet. Manufactured by Boeing, the C-17 was designed for rapid strategic airlift of troops and cargo to main operating bases or forward operating bases. It's a beast in every sense, stretching 174 feet long with a wingspan of 169 feet and capable of carrying up to 170,900 pounds of cargo.
Load 172,000 pounds of cargo on here.
Equipped with 4 Pratt & Whitney F117PW 100 turbofan engines, the Globemaster III can cruise at 450 knots and fly over 2,400 nautical miles without refueling. But its most unique feature is its agility for a plane its size. The C-17 can operate from relatively short and unpaved runways and is used in both combat and humanitarian missions worldwide. The aircraft involved in the crash, tail number 00-0173, was assigned to the 3rd Wing at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson and had been in service for a decade. Known affectionately by its nickname, Spirit of the Aleutians, this aircraft had flown countless missions across the globe. The doomed flight was not part of a combat operation or an emergency response.
This capability lets the C-17 combine the intercontinental cargo-carrying capabilities of larger aircraft.
It was a demonstration practice run for the Arctic Thunder Air Show, a major public event held at Elmendorf-Richardson that draws tens of thousands of spectators. The crew aboard the C-17 was conducting a routine practice for a high-speed, low-altitude flyby demonstration.
Our airspeed, our attitude, our altitude, how fast we're climbing or descending is all right in front of my face in a very small square.
The goal was to showcase the aircraft's power, maneuverability, and capabilities to the public just a few days later. With no passengers on board except for the 4-man crew, the flight was expected to last only minutes. A brief takeoff, a high-speed pass, a sharp turn, and a safe landing. The flight crew consisted of 4 experienced Air Force personnel, all of whom lost their lives in the crash. Major Aaron Malone, pilot. Major Michael Freiholtz, co-pilot. Captain Jeffrey Hill, navigator. Master Sergeant Thomas Sicardo, loadmaster. All 4 were seasoned aviators with extensive flight hours. They were not only respected by their peers, but were also considered some of the most capable members of the 3rd Wing. 6:12 p.m., the C-17 taxied onto the runway. Weather conditions were optimal, clear skies and minimal wind. Visibility was excellent. Air traffic control cleared the aircraft for takeoff. 6:13 p.m. The aircraft lifted off the runway and began climbing rapidly. This was not a normal takeoff profile. It was tailored for airshow performance, involving a steep ascent and a high-speed pass. 6:14 p.m. As the aircraft began a sharp left-hand turn, the nose pitched up dramatically. Eyewitnesses on the ground, including military personnel, described the plane climbing aggressively before rolling to the left and entering what appeared to be a stall. 6:15 p.m. Within seconds, the aircraft's left wing dropped and the C-17 entered an uncontrolled descent. Surveillance footage later confirmed that the aircraft rolled more than 90 degrees to the left, an extreme and unrecoverable bank angle. 6:22 p.m. The aircraft slammed into a wooded area on the base, just northwest of the runway. A massive fireball erupted on impact, visible for miles. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but there were no survivors. One of the most chilling aspects of this crash is that it was captured on video by base surveillance cameras and internal systems. The footage, which was later released during the investigation, showed the C-17 climbing steeply before abruptly banking and nosediving into the ground. Cockpit voice recorder, CVR, data and flight data recorder, FDR, information revealed a chaotic final few seconds. While no distress call was issued, the audio confirmed that the crew recognized the stall just moments before impact. There was no time for recovery. Immediately following the crash, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson initiated emergency protocols. The area was secured and all operations were temporarily halted. Within hours, the Air Force Safety Center and Air Mobility Command dispatched investigators to Alaska. The wreckage was spread across a wooded zone, heavily charred and difficult to access. Over the next several weeks, recovery teams combed through debris, extracted data from the black boxes, and began reconstructing the final moments of the flight. In the next section, we'll explore the full findings from the Air Force's official investigation, including the human factors involved, the aerodynamic limitations of the C-17, and the decisions that contributed to this avoidable tragedy. The official Air Force Accident Investigation Board, AIB, released its report several months after the crash. The findings were sobering and definitive. The primary cause of the accident was pilot error, specifically, the pilot's decision to execute an aggressive maneuver at a dangerously low airspeed, well below the aircraft's stall threshold. According to the investigation, Major Aaron Malone, the aircraft commander, attempted a steep left-hand turn at a slow airspeed immediately after takeoff. This was a maneuver intended to create an impressive display for the airshow practice run. However, it exceeded the aircraft's performance limits. The C-17, while highly capable for a heavy airlifter, is not designed for high-angle banked turns at low speed, especially while climbing. The angle of attack increased to the point where the airflow over the wings became disrupted, resulting in an aerodynamic stall. Once that happened, the left wing dropped sharply, and the aircraft entered an unrecoverable roll. Critically, the investigation revealed that the aircraft's stall warning system had activated during the maneuver, alerting the crew to the imminent danger. Despite this, the maneuver continued for several more seconds. The board concluded that the pilot either did not respond appropriately to the warnings or underestimated the severity of the stall indicators. One of the most debated aspects of the report was the crew's situational awareness and crew resource management, CRM. The C-17 cockpit is designed for collaborative operation, and the CVR confirmed that the co-pilot and navigator voiced concern about the maneuver in the seconds leading up to the crash. However, the board concluded that the aircraft commander maintained control authority and continued the aggressive pitch and turn despite the input. This raised difficult questions about hierarchical cockpit culture and decision-making under pressure, particularly in demonstration or high-visibility settings. In terms of contributing factors, the AIB also cited a possible air show mentality, a tendency during rehearsals or public displays to push an aircraft's limits for dramatic effect. While the Arctic Thunder Air Show was not a combat mission, it carried the same sense of responsibility, pride, and performance excellence that often motivates crews to take calculated risks. The AIB emphasized that these risks must be carefully weighed against flight safety principles. In this case, the desire to execute an impressive maneuver outweighed the cautious adherence to standard flight profiles, resulting in catastrophic consequences. The crash had a lasting effect on the U.S. Air Force's policies and procedures. In the wake of the incident, several key changes were implemented. Revised air show flight profiles. Demonstration routines were reassessed and reauthorized to ensure they fall well within the aircraft's safe operational envelope. Improved crew resource management, CRM. Training. Emphasis was placed on empowering subordinate crew members to assertively voice safety concerns and, when necessary, override unsafe actions. Increased stall awareness. Additional training was mandated to help pilots recognize and respond immediately to stall warnings, especially during low-altitude flight. Flight data monitoring. The Air Force invested in better tools to monitor and evaluate flight patterns during non-combat missions to identify potentially dangerous practices before they result in accidents. Mental readiness evaluations. Greater attention was given to the mindset of crews participating in non-combat but high-pressure flights, like air shows or demonstrations. Perhaps the most important legacy of the crash is the human one. The loss of Major Malone, Major Freiholtz, Captain Hill, and Master Sergeant. Sicardo was a devastating blow to their families, the Third Wing, and the broader Air Force community. Memorial services were held across multiple bases, and each of the fallen crew members received full military honors. A memorial was also erected at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson to commemorate their service and sacrifice. Their deaths served as a painful reminder that even training missions carry real risks, and that the margin for error in military aviation is razor thin. Beyond the crash investigation and procedural reforms, the C-17 Globemaster III platform itself came under brief scrutiny. Some questioned whether the aircraft's stall characteristics were adequately understood and whether its flight control systems provided enough warning in extreme maneuvers. However, further testing confirmed that the C-17 behaved as expected within its design envelope. The problem was not with the aircraft, but with how it was flown. Engineers found that the stall warning system performed correctly, the flight control surfaces responded as intended, and there were no mechanical failures. In fact, the C-17 has gone on to serve with distinction in numerous missions around the world since 2010, from humanitarian aid drops and medical evacuations to special forces insertions and rapid response logistics. It remains one of the most trusted workhorses in the U.S. military's fleet. Still, the 2010 crash became a case study in aviation safety circles, both inside and outside the military. Flight schools, safety briefings, and CRM programs frequently reference the Elmendorf incident as a vivid example of how overconfidence, pressure to perform, and momentary misjudgment can lead to tragedy. The incident also had an emotional ripple effect throughout the Air Mobility Command community. Fellow C-17 pilots across multiple bases reported a renewed focus on flight discipline and crew communication following the release of the AIB report. The phrase Elmendorf 2010 became a kind of code among aviators. a reminder to never let pride or spectacle override safety protocols. 10 years later, during a remembrance event in 2020, Air Force leadership emphasized that the best way to honor the fallen was to learn from the tragedy and ensure that future generations of airmen never forget what happened. The names Malone, Freiholtz, Hill, and Sicardo are still spoken with respect across the force. In the final segment of this video, we'll look at the broader implications of the Elmendorf crash on modern military aviation, how it reshaped flight demonstration standards, impacted C-17 training programs, and served as a crucial learning point for U.S. and Allied air forces worldwide. The legacy of the Elmendorf C-17 crash extends far beyond Alaska's borders. It became a touchstone event in the U.S. military's ongoing efforts to improve operational safety and mission readiness. What makes the tragedy so important is that it occurred not during combat, but during a routine, rehearsed mission, highlighting how peacetime operations can carry risks just as significant as those in war zones. In the wake of the accident, Air Mobility Command, AMC, reviewed not only its flight demonstration policies, but also its broader philosophy on balancing mission effectiveness with crew safety. One of the most lasting takeaways was the realization that even elite, experienced crews are not immune to lapses in judgment, especially when under pressure to perform or impress. The lessons learned from the 2010 crash were folded into updated doctrine, including revised guidelines on aircraft maneuvering during public demonstrations. Instructors now emphasize strict adherence to envelope protection, the boundaries within which an aircraft can operate safely under given conditions. While this limits showmanship, it dramatically reduces the likelihood of future losses. Moreover, flight simulator programs used by C-17 training units were updated to simulate stall scenarios similar to what happened at Elmendorf. Pilots now experience the onset of aerodynamic stall at low altitude under aggressive maneuvering profiles, helping them understand the warning signs and react appropriately under stress. Importantly, the 2010 incident also led to a cultural shift in how risk is evaluated in non-combat operations. Military leadership acknowledged the subtle, often unspoken pressures that can drive crews to go beyond safe operational norms. This includes things like peer expectations, public visibility, and internal desires to prove aircraft capability. New training modules and leadership courses now address these psychological drivers head-on. Another significant outcome of the crash was the emphasis on cockpit authority and shared responsibility. The fact that the other crew members voiced concern but did not take more assertive action highlighted a gap in crew resource management execution. As a result, CRM instruction now places even greater focus on assertiveness, hierarchy flattening during emergencies, and the empowerment of junior crew members to intervene when safety is at risk. Outside the U.S., Allied nations operating the C-17 platform took note as well. Royal Air Force, Royal Australian Air Force, and Canadian Air Force units incorporated aspects of the Elmendorf crash into their own training and safety programs. The global community recognized that while the C-17 is a robust, battle-tested machine, it, like any aircraft, must be flown with discipline and respect for its limits. For the families of the crew, the pain of that day never fully fades. But many have since spoken about their hope that others will live because of what their loved ones taught the world through this tragedy. The names of Major Aaron Malone, Major Michael Freiholtz, Captain Jeffrey Hill, and Master Sergeant Thomas Sicardo are engraved not just on memorials, but in training manuals, safety presentations, and the minds of airmen everywhere. At Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, a plaque and static display now honor the memory of the spirit of the Aleutians, the C-17, that was lost. Each year, fellow service members gather in solemn remembrance, reflecting on the crew's service, their sacrifice, and the lessons that have made future flights safer. The story of the 2010 C-17 crash is tragic, but it's also vital. It reminds us that no mission is routine, that every flight demands vigilance, and that the price of complacency, even for a moment, can be devastating. But out of that devastation came change. Out of loss came reform. And out of tragedy came a renewed commitment to doing things the right way, every time. The U.S. Air Force, as well as militaries around the world, have grown safer because of what happened that day in Alaska. The C-17 continues to fly proud, bearing the weight of cargo, humanitarian relief, and now, a legacy of lives that made aviation stronger. Thank you for watching this in-depth breakdown of the 2010 C-17 Globemaster III crash. If this video informed you, honored the fallen, or gave you new insight into military aviation, consider subscribing for more documentaries like this. And most importantly, never forget the airmen who gave everything so others might learn, improve, and fly again.